from the fact that Marvin's life was cut short by his father, do you know there were other terrible things that happened to their family which affected his mother the most? Join us as we uncover the terrible secret Marvin Gaye's mother died with. Enduring pain. Alberta often found herself caught between her husband's severe disciplinary methods and their children. In a 1979 conversation with David Ritz, she disclosed her husband's animosity towards young Marvin, stating that her husband never wanted and liked Marvin. It became clearer when he said that he didn't think Marvin was really his child. Despite Alberta's insistence that Marvin was indeed his son, Marvin Sr. harbored an inexplicable lack of affection for him, even attempting to prevent Alberta from expressing love towards Marvin. It did not take long for Marvin to sense this rejection. As Marvin Sr. concluded his ministry, his life took a darker turn. He developed a significant drinking dependency and began to express an interest in cross-dressing. Alberta later recounted that her husband was drawn to soft fabrics and items, often wearing her panties, shoes, gowns, and even nylon stockings. You might be asking why she never left him after noticing all these. Well, her response to leaving him will surprise you. When asked if she ever contemplated leaving or divorcing him, Alberta admitted she had considered it, but ultimately felt compassion for him due to his troubled past, leading her to remain in the marriage out of a sense of obligation to help him. Alberta expressed concerns regarding Marvin Sr.'s readiness for parenthood, citing his lack of knowledge in child rearing prior to her passing. She confided in David Ritz that she had contemplated leaving him on numerous occasions, particularly before the incident in which he fired at Marvin. Yet she found herself lacking the courage to take that step. Her daughter, Jean, noted that Alberta's deep commitment to her faith and the church significantly influenced her decision to remain with Marvin Sr., despite the challenges they faced. Jean reflected on her father's behavior, suggesting that while he may have raised his voice at her mother, Marvin would likely not have intervened unless he felt it necessary to protect her. Marvin Jr., in retrospect, characterized his mother as a principled individual, commending her kindness and generosity. She often welcomed and fed neighbors in need, even amidst her own struggles. He believed that her hardships ultimately fortified her character, and as he matured, he wished that all women embodied her qualities. In contrast to his challenging relationship with his father, Marvin credited his mother for her unwavering support and encouragement of his musical talents, asserting that without her, he might have become one of the unfortunate children often mentioned in news reports. Alberta's marriage to Marvin Sr. was fraught with tension, marked by his infidelity and occasional physical maltreatment, compounded by his resentment over not being the primary provider, given his limited income as a pastor. For you to understand how Alberta got herself tangled with Marvin, let's take a step back to Alberta's upbringing and how she met this thorn in her flesh. Meeting Marvin Gaye. Alberta Williams. Cooper was born on January 1, 1913, in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. She was the youngest of 5 siblings, having 3 sisters and a brother. However, her early life was fraught with difficulties. Her father once fired at her mother during a domestic dispute, an incident from which her mother fortunately emerged unscathed. Tragically, her father later died in a psychiatric institution. Alberta recounted to writer David Ritz that she never truly felt the presence of a father figure in her life. Compounding her challenges, her family did not enroll her in school until she was 8 years old. At the age of 20, Alberta gave birth to a son named Michael. Her mother, disapproving of the situation, sent her to live with relatives in Washington, D.C. It was there that Alberta met Marvin Gaye, a minister in 1934. The couple quickly formed a bond and married a year later on July 2, 1935. They established their first residence in a modest apartment on 1st Street SW, near the Anacostia River, in an area known as Simple City, characterized by a blend of urban and rural elements. Despite starting with so much happiness, challenges arose. Marvin struggled with the responsibility of raising Michael, who was not his biological child, leading to Michael living with Alberta's sister Pearl. According to Alberta's daughter, Jean, Michael was unaware that Alberta was his mother until he reached his teenage years. There is a narrative about Michael encouraging young Marvin to confront their father's strict demeanor, which resulted in Marvin Sr. sending Michael to stay with another sister, Zola, in Detroit. However, Jean later clarified that Michael had already intended to relocate to Detroit prior to this incident. The family faced numerous upheavals, with many aspects of their lives changing rapidly, including the loss of their studio. Marvin Sr. and Alberta ultimately had 4 children together. Mabel Jean was the first child, born in 1937, followed by Marvin Pence Jr. on April 2, 1939. The family welcomed a younger son, Francis Frankie, in November 1941, and finally, a daughter named Zola, named after Alberta's sister in 1945. Alberta and Marvin became adherents of the Strict House of God, a Christian sect that adheres to Hebrew Pentecostal teachings. Due to Marvin Sr.'s limited ability to provide for the family, Alberta took on the role of a domestic worker, cleaning homes in Maryland and Virginia to support their household. However, everything changed dramatically when Marvin Sr. secretly fathered another son, Carrie Gaye, in 1970 during an extramarital affair, a fact that Alberta was unaware of at the time. While all this was going on, little did anyone know that it was having a psychological effect on Marvin Jr. The influence on Marvin Jr. Alberta provided support and encouragement, which significantly contributed to her importance in Marvin's life. Despite reaching adulthood, Marvin Gaye struggled with intricate emotions related to his father's cross-dressing and the surrounding rumors about his personal orientation. According to one biographer, Gaye harbored a profound fear that his father's personal orientation might influence his own. This fear was compounded by Marvin Gaye's battle with addiction and his father's struggle with drinking. His return home led to escalating violence, and despite being expelled by his father, Gaye longed for reconciliation, stating that he has just one father and intends to make peace with him. However, fate intervened, preventing him from achieving that reconciliation. Throughout his life, Gaye remained supportive of his mother, and upon achieving success, he relocated his parents from their dilapidated housing project to a spacious home he purchased for them in a more affluent neighborhood at 15th and Varnum in Washington, D.C. in 1973. Subsequently, in that same year, he moved his parents again, this time to a residence at 2101 Gramercy Place in the West Adams district of Los Angeles. The rest of the family also migrated to California. By 1979, Marvin had transferred all his possessions to the new house. In that year, David Ritz conducted an interview with him there while they collaborated on a biography. During this period, Alberta, aware of her son's persistent struggle with depression, spent several months with him, accompanying him to both Maui and London to provide support. But because no one holds their life to themselves, in October 1982, Alberta Gaye was urgently admitted to a hospital in Los Angeles due to a severe kidney infection that necessitated surgery. Her sons, Marvin and Frankie, hurried from Belgium to be with her, while Marvin Sr. stayed in Washington, D.C., concentrating on renovating and selling their former home on Varnum Place. He refused to return to California to assist Alberta during her surgery or recovery. Marvin Jr. contended that Alberta was entitled to half of the proceeds from the sale of the house, but Marvin Sr. denied having sold it. Well, this is just the snippet of the drama. Keep watching as we explore how Marvin Sr. ended his son's life, all because of his insecurities. Marvin Gaye's death. On March 31st, 1984, Alberta and her husband engaged in a fierce dispute regarding misplaced business documents, which included a crucial insurance policy that Alberta was accused of misplacing. The argument intensified and moved into Marvin's bedroom, where he awoke to the disturbance and immediately supported his mother, instructing his father to leave her alone. Marvin Sr. exited the room without further incident. However, he continued to wander around the house, muttering to himself. This particular day coincided with the time when Alberta's husband had been drinking, leading to the confrontation over the business papers. The following day, April 1st, the conflict reignited when Marvin Sr. called for Alberta to come downstairs from Marvin's room. Once again, Marvin intervened, asserting that if his father wished to speak with her, he should do so directly. When Marvin Sr. disregarded Marvin's request, he forcefully entered Marvin's room, resulting in a heated argument. In a fit of frustration and anger, Marvin pushed his father out of the room and shouted at him. According to Alberta, Marvin struck and kicked his father during this altercation. Eventually, Alberta persuaded her son to exit the room. However, at approximately 12:38 p.m., Gaye Sr. returned to Marvin's room armed with an unlicensed Smith & Wesson .38 caliber pistol, a gift Marvin had given him for Christmas. In a tragic turn of events, Gaye Sr. fired at Marvin in the right chest, the bullet penetrating vital organs, including his heart. Marvin was shot again at point-blank range, while Alberta had already fled the room after the initial shot, desperately imploring her husband not to turn the gun on her next. Marvin was swiftly transported to the hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries shortly after his arrival at the California Hospital Medical Center. Alberta was the sole individual present when her husband fatally fired at their son. Alberta, overwhelmed by the horror of the situation, fled the scene, leaving her younger son Frankie and his wife, who were residing in a guest house on the property, as the first witnesses to the aftermath of Marvin Gaye's untimely death. Frankie recounted the traumatic experience, describing how his mother fell to the ground, exclaiming that Marvin Sr. ended her boy's life. Marvin Gaye was officially declared dead at the age of 44. Upon the arrival of law enforcement, Marvin Gaye Sr. was discovered seated calmly on the porch, still clutching the firearm. When questioned by the police regarding his feelings towards his son, he chillingly remarked that he didn't dislike him. Despite his previously expressed hostility towards Marvin, there seemed to be a notable change in his demeanor following the tragic event. He began to articulate feelings of sorrow over the loss of his beloved child and claimed that he was not fully aware of his actions during an interview conducted while he awaited trial. Gaye confessed that although he pulled the trigger, he believed then that the weapon contained BB pellets rather than live ammunition. This statement indicates a complex interplay of remorse and a potential attempt to lessen the gravity of his actions. Gaye Sr. recounted the fatal incident, noting that the first shot did not appear to disturb Marvin, who raised his hand to his face as if he had been struck by a BB, prompting him to fire again. To justify himself, Gaye Sr. characterized his son as having devolved into a beast-like figure, attributing this transformation to an alleged violent confrontation initiated by Marvin Gaye prior to the shooting incident. However, subsequent investigations did not corroborate Gaye Sr.'s assertions. Lieutenant Robert Martin, the primary investigator, reported a lack of physical evidence, noting that there were no signs of bruising or any indication that Marvin had been physically harassed. This absence of corroborative evidence raised significant doubts about Gaye Sr.'s rationale for his actions, illustrating a tragic narrative of a family fractured by violence and substance misuse. Furthermore, it was determined that Gaye Sr. was competent, and the judicial system proceeded accordingly. Distressed neighbors recounted that the dispute leading up to Marvin Gaye's death centered on preparations for the singer's impending 45th birthday, which was set for the following day. However, later accounts indicated that the conflict may have stemmed from a misplaced insurance policy letter, which incited Marvin Gaye's fury. Regardless of the underlying cause and the legitimacy of Gaye Sr.'s claims concerning BB pellets, he expressed regret, revealing that he was unaware of his son's death until a detective informed him hours later. This expression of remorse highlights the tragic and intricate nature of the situation. emphasizing the deep-seated discord within the family and the irreversible ramifications of their confrontation. In an unexpected development, the courts seemed to exhibit a degree of leniency towards Gaye Sr.'s account of the events. Marvin Gaye's tragic death was marked by the brutal circumstances surrounding it. In the aftermath, his father, Marvin Sr., was allowed to enter a plea of no contest to a single charge of voluntary manslaughter. He received a suspended sentence of 6 years, accompanied by 5 years of probation. Following this legal resolution, Marvin Sr. spent the remainder of his life in a nursing home in California, where he passed away in 1998 at the age of 84. Although Marvin Jr.'s life was cut short and untimely, the interesting thing about him is that he ensured to leave a quality legacy for his fans. Check this out: the evidence of Marvin's legacy. The impact of Marvin Gaye's legacy was evident among his fans, with one expressing sorrow over the loss, stating that Marvin was undoubtedly one of the finest soul artists. Another fan remarked on the profound betrayal felt, suggesting that Marvin Sr. would suffer eternally for his actions against his own son. During his sentencing on November 20, 1984, Gaye Sr. expressed his remorse, stating that he's deeply sorry about his actions, and if there was means to restore Marvin's life, he would have done that. Although we've seen a glimpse of what his life looked like, there are still some details that make up the legacy of Marvin Gaye. Especially if you've ever wondered why he added E to his name, then this is exactly what you need. What you should know about Marvin Jeter. Marvin Gaye was raised in a strict religious environment in a segregated and impoverished area of southwest Washington, D.C. Alongside his parents, older sister Jean, younger brother Frankie, and younger sister Zola, where many forms of entertainment, including television, movies, and dancing, were prohibited. Marvin's father, a minister, employed both physical and psychological methods of punishment to discipline his children, particularly targeting Marvin, who often provoked his father in a bid for attention. Marvin's mother contributed to the family's income through her work as a teacher and in domestic roles. Marvin frequently accompanied his father to church services, where he began singing, performing, and playing instruments at the tender age of 3. In October, he became a member of the DC Tones doo-wop group. He subsequently dropped out of high school and enlisted in the Air Force, but was discharged the following June. Upon returning to Washington, D.C., Marvin joined another doo-wop group, the Marquis. During this period, he encountered Harvey Fuqua, and the Marquis eventually merged with Fuqua's group, the Moonglows. In pursuit of honing his musical abilities, Marvin moved to Chicago, where he immersed himself in the professional and technical dimensions of music. However, his experiences on the road with fellow musicians also led him to experiment with various styles. That same year, Marvin demonstrated his vocal prowess by taking the lead on Mama Lucy, marking his debut as a lead vocalist. Recognizing Marvin's potential, Fuqua relocated to Detroit with him and secured a contract for him with Gwen Gordy's label, Anna Records, a subsidiary of Motown. Despite signing with the label, Marvin's initial contributions primarily involved drumming and piano sessions for other artists on Anna Records, notably aiding in the success of the Marvelettes' hit record. Marvin takes a remarkable step in his career by officially changing his name to Marvin Gaye, adding the final E to differentiate himself from his father, dispel rumors regarding his personal orientation, and pay homage to his idol, Sam Cooke. By May, he released his debut single on Tamla, featuring Let Your Conscience Be Your Guide on one side and Never Let You Go on the other. The following month marks the launch of his first album, The Soulful Moods of Marvin Gaye. In October, he joined the inaugural Motown Revue for a 2-month tour across the United States, sharing the stage with fellow artists. Despite receiving limited guidance from Motown's artistic director, Marvin takes to heart the advice to avoid performing with closed eyes. By December, Stubborn Kind of Fellow, a track that reflects Marvin's character, gained traction, reaching number 8 on the R&B charts and number 46 on the pop charts. Songs such as Hitchhike and Pride and Joy further establish his early commercial success. In a remarkable year, Marvin achieves significant milestones with 4 hits, in which 2 are collaborations with Tammy Terrell, and both of them entered the top 10 in the US charts. One of these hits, I Heard It Through the Grapevine, becomes Marvin's first #1 pop single, selling nearly 4 million copies and dominating the charts for 7 consecutive weeks. In January, the single, What's Going On, was released and quickly became Motown's fastest-selling recording. By March, Marvin began work on the groundbreaking album What's Going On, which, upon its release in May, experienced immediate success, selling 500,000 copies on its first day and securing the #6 position on the US charts. Do you know that beyond just singing, Marvin had a special effect on Motown? You just heard it for the first time, right? Well, stay tuned. Let's unveil how it happened. Transforming Motown label. Numerous biographical elements contributed to the development of Gaye's artistic output, as highlighted by La Puente. The return of his brother Frankie from Vietnam, coupled with first-hand accounts of the war's atrocities, instilled in Gaye a profound urgency to create the album What's Going On, which is imbued with a pacifist and spiritual essence. Released in 1971, this album is widely regarded as a seminal work in the annals of popular music. Through this project, Marvin Gaye played an important role in transforming the trajectory of the Motown label in the soul genre during a critical period for several reasons. Notably, he was among the first Black artists to transition from traditional song formats to the concept album format. Furthermore, he adopted a socially conscious and radical stance on issues such as racial equality and environmentalism, topics that were largely overlooked at the time. This album also marked a significant acknowledgement of Motown's talented studio musicians, as Gaye included their names in the album credits for the first time. So what do you think about Marvin's father? Do you think he deserved the chances he got from his wife, Alberta? Let us know in the comment section. If you want more interesting revelations about your favorite celebrities, be sure to like, subscribe, and watch the next video shown on your screen. See you there.